Hey everybody, what's going on? Helmite here, bringing another video from Grab the Lantern today. Bel'Veth's kit has finally been revealed in full. It feels like it took Riot forever to get this up. Usually it's up before the champions on PvE, but Bel'Veth is there now. Her abilities have been revealed, so let's take some time, go through Bel'Veth's kit, and talk a little bit more about what her capabilities are, how I think she's going to shape up balance-wise, does she have any pro play viability, all sorts of those things. Let's go ahead and take a look now. Now, off the bat, I think Bel'Veth does some really interesting things, but I also think there are some things she does that are not so hot. But let's go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty of it, starting with Bel'Veth's passive, Death in Lavender. When she uses an ability, her next 2 attacks have increased attack speed, and whenever she kills a large monster or champion, she gains permanent bonus attack speed in the form of Lavender stacks. She attacks faster than normal and doesn't have an attack speed cap, but her attacks on hit effects deal reduced damage, and she does not gain attack speed on level up. Now, this means 2 separate things, right? She's an infinite stacker, like a couple other infinite stacking champions, but she's an infinite stacker in the way that Senna and Thresh are, in that they don't have a certain scaling, right? Thresh does not gain armor per level, Senna does not gain AD per level, I believe, so they're forced to play this sort of mini-game. Now, Bel'Veth is able to farm this off of large monsters, so she does have the option of playing the sort of power farming game, but also participating in combat will give her stacks of her passive as well, so she is encouraged to still go for the PvP game, as well as the PvE game. Now, this already sets up Bel'Veth as an on-hit champion. She has no attack speed cap, she gains permanent increased attack speed, using an ability gives her extra attack speed. Like, there's a lot that Bel'Veth is already sort of shaping up to be a very Master Yi type champion, and that you're going to build things like Kraken Slayer into Ginsu's Rageblade, and just sort of go off from there. Now, obviously, her on-hits do reduced damage, but I don't believe this affects Kraken Slayer because true damage is not changed or mitigated by anything. I don't know if this counts self-abilities or just like enemy, like damage reduction type abilities, I'm not sure, but either way I would expect Bel'Veth to be an on-hit type champion thanks to this passive on its own. Bel'Veth's Q is Void Surge. She dashes in one of 4 directions, as you can see noted on her character model there, dealing damage to enemies she passes through and applying on hit effects. Every direction has its own unique cooldown that scales with attack speed. This makes her similar to Urgot passive, where she has these directions and they have their own per cooldown, which means that she theoretically gets 4 separate dashes in a team fight. My assumption is that this champion does use mana. This is always my assumption until I'm proven otherwise. If she does not, though, this is going to make it her very immobile, especially in the middle of a fight. Obviously, this does have a cooldown still, and especially if you use your dash in, for example, you still have your dash out, so that's kind of nice, but it means that you can't do like a double dash forward to really close the gap on somebody even if you want to. This applies on hit effects. Even more indication that Bel'Veth wants to be building on hit, and it also scales with attack speed, so again, you want to be building attack speed. This is really just solidifying the build Kraken Slayer. This gives her a lot of in-fight mobility, but also in sort of an interesting way, in that Bel'Veth, it's not free targeted mobility, it kind of sort of is, but it kind of sort of isn't, and importantly, this does not go over walls either until she's in her true form, which is something that we'll talk about here in a little bit, but either way, very excited to see this ability. I think it's kind of fun. It gives her some mobility, but not in a way that I think feels particularly bad to play against, so it's kind of nice. Bel'Veth's W is Above and Below. She slams her tail down, dealing damage, knocking up and slowing enemies she hits, and upon hitting an enemy champion, this ability reduces Void Surge's dash cooldown in the direction of the champion hit. This is kind of fun. This, off the bat, it already looks very similar to like Rost W, where it's a long delay, it's about the same amount of cast time, it does damage, it knocks up, it slows, it does a lot of fun things. There's already a fun combo here where you can Void Surge in the direction of a champion, then press W to knock them up, reduce the cooldown of your dash in, so then you can dash even further close. This also knocks them up for quite some distance, so you can get some auto attacks in while they're in the air. There's some kind of fun things that you can do with this ability, and it gives Bel'Veth a very small amount of utility. She does not have a lot of utility, you guys, so if you fall behind on this character, you're going to feel really bad, but at the very least, this is a form of hard crowd control, which is something that even, for example, Master Yi doesn't have. If he falls behind, he does nothing. At least Bel'Veth can become a knockup bot if she absolutely has to. Bel'Veth's E is Royal Maelstrom, which is her defensive ability. She is a skirmisher, so this is, besides her mobility, this is her way of keeping herself alive in a fight. She channels a storm of slashes around her, gaining damage reduction and increased lifesteal. Every strike strikes the lowest health enemy within the Maelstrom, dealing more damage the more health they're missing, and the amount of slashes scales with her attack speed. Now, obviously, this is still a damaging ability, but she doesn't have the ability of dictating who she actually goes after. It is always going to be the target with the lowest health, which is at least nice, because if you want to finish off someone who's low, you press this button and it's guaranteed to be hitting. Again, the amount of slashes scales with attack speed, more reason to be building attack speed on this character. And the fact that this gains damage reduction and increased lifesteal makes it similar in nature to Master Yi's Meditate. The healing is less guaranteed than Meditate, but also there is a damage component to this. So in that regard, it's still a useful way to keep Bel'Veth dealing damage, which is kind of nice. This is the button you're going to be using when hard-hitting enemy abilities are coming in, because you can pop the damage reduction. This is also a channel, or at least it says channels, so my assumption is that this can be interrupted with enemy crowd control, but I guess we'll have to see how it actually works. Either way, it's a very short duration, so you're going to have to time this ability well in order to get the maximum amount of value out of it. Also, again, even though there is an AoE on this, it is not an AoE ability. She only ever hits the lowest health target, so you do have to kind of be cognizant of when you use this. It's not really an aggressive move. The reason you're going to use this is either to finish someone off at low health when you're directly on top of them, or to, again, mitigate a hard-hitting enemy ability. Finally, we come to Bel'Veth's R, and this is where things are kind of fall apart for me personally. There is a passive component to this, which is that every second attack against the same target deals additional true damage. So as long as you are able to stay in combat, sort of like Jax's Relentless Assault, you can just keep dealing additional amounts of true damage to that target, which means that the faster you attack, the more damage you are doing, and the less able your opponent is to actually stop that damage, because more and more of it is true damage. This also means that it synergizes with things like Ginsu's Rage Blade, where you can stack up faster. Takedowns against epic monsters and champions leave behind pieces of Void Coral, and epic monsters from the Void, like Rift Herald and Baron Nashor, drop specialer, voidier Void Coral. You have to activate this ability to pick up any Void Coral that's on the ground, so it is an active thing that you have to consider. When you consume the Void Coral, you explode, slowing and dealing true damage to nearby enemies based on their missing health, and then you become your true form, which and if you consume the Void Coral left behind by epic monsters from the Void, Rift Herald and Baron Nashor specifically, you get your true form for an extended duration and cause minions that die in your presence to become reborn as faithful Voidlings. They're minions that march down the lane in which they were spawned, very similarly to Yorick passive, right, where when he kills units, he spawns the ghouls, and if the ghouls enter combat in a lane, they'll proceed down that lane. In that regard, it's very similar to Bel'Veth. There's a final component of this where when Bel'Veth is in her true form, she has increased max health, out of combat movement speed, attack range, and total attack speed, and her true form gives her the ability to dash through walls with Void Surge, which she does not have innately. That is a lot of text. Fundamentally, though, the active component of this ability will only ever come up if you kill an epic monster or kill a champion. This basically makes Bel'Veth very similar to a reset fighter. It looks like she has a brief window of invulnerability or untargetability or something along those lines when she actually picks up the Void Coral, so she can actually go for this in the middle of a fight like Viego with his ability to consume an enemy champion's soul to become them, right? There's like that window of invulnerability. That's what it appears to me in this clip right here. It looks like she's untargetable while she's doing this, which is quite nice. It gives you the big pop. You enter the enhanced form, which then lets you do even more damage and be even scarier for your opponents to deal with, so that you can kill them and get more Void Coral for more explosions. There's a lot of possibilities here, and especially the fact that this allows you to go over walls is quite nice. Having already cheated a little bit here, guys, and looked at the PvE, Bel'Veth gets her true form for a minute if it's a champion or non-Void epic monster. If it is a Void epic monster, she gets it for 3 minutes. And it's only if she consumes it from a Void monster that she's able to get the minion spawning passive as well. The minion spawning passive is weird. I guess to a certain extent it means you did Herald so you can push better, but really this is her only Brood Mother ability, and I just don't like the execution. I really don't. I try to be super positive about this, guys, when the champion first comes out, but like I really don't like this ability from the Voidling spawning. Bel'Veth is supposed to be this Voidling Summoner, Queen, Empress, Brood Mother, Swarm Lord type character, and this is the only button in her kit that gives her Voidlings. And it's only if she specifically kills Rift Herald or Baron Nashor. That's it. Really not a fan of that. I feel like you could have left that off in its entirety, and it would not have mattered, and it would not have made a difference on the balance of the champion. I honestly, if Bel'Veth ends up being too broken, this is probably one of the first places Riot would cut, because it's just extraneous power. I don't think there's any reason for it to be on the kit, but either way, I think it works well as a reset fighter and a big steroid for Bel'Veth. It means that she's very dependent on getting that first kill in a fight in order to turn her on into her true form. But at the very least, if she does get it, she becomes very, very scary. In terms of her design, I generally like the design. She feels very similar to on-hit champions like Master Yi. They're going to be trying to get in for as much damage as possible. They're going to be building items like Ginsu's Rageblade, Kraken Slayer, and just trying to do as much on-hit damage as they can. Obviously, Bel'Veth deals less on-hit damage than normal, but she still will attack fast enough that she's going to apply a ton. She's going to apply her own true damage passive a ton, and I think that gives her a lot of ability to melt tanks. Guess what Riot just did? They just buffed everyone's durability. What's more valuable now? True damage and damage over time, both of which Bel'Veth is bringing in spades. Now, obviously, she is still melee, which means she has to get a lot closer than a champion like, say, Kog'Maw, for example. She doesn't have any untargetability like Master Yi to help her close the gap. She doesn't even really have that good of a gap closer, so she's still going to need someone to set her up. But if you can set her up, she is going to be able to do an absolute ton of damage in a fight as long as she's able to stay alive. I think she's going to be really powerful from her ability to do objectives very quickly. Again, her ultimate gives her additional true damage that stacks infinitely against the same target in every second attack, which means that Bel'Veth, who has uncapped attack speed, can just kind of stack up her attack speed while hitting a monster, doing ever more true damage, has some missing health damage in her kit as well. There's a lot that's going to make Bel'Veth very powerful against epic monsters specifically, and make her very good at objective control. But I feel like her ability to do things in team fights is a little lackluster. Her mobility isn't quite there for me. I think she also doesn't have a very easy way in. She doesn't have a lot of a very powerful defensive tool. I think that lifesteal in DR is nice, but not necessarily going to save her like Meditate can. There are some things about Bel'Veth that I don't really like in terms of what her kit looks like, but I do like a lot of the things that she's able to do. The Void Coral sort of explosion reset type deal is interesting, and the ability to enter this sort of enhanced state or to really make her strong, I think, is a good way of letting Bel'Veth feel like a reset fighter without just straight up giving her resets, right? I do think I kind of like that. Really, she feels very straightforward as a character. I can't think of too many things about Bel'Veth that ends up being difficult. She's a stack-based character. She needs to be farming up her passive to give her all of this attack speed because she doesn't get attack speed per level. She needs her items, but if she's able to get her items, if she's able to get that attack speed stacked, and if she's able to get that first kill, then yes, she's probably going to kill everything she remotely looks at, and that's sort of fine. That's kind of how skirmishers work. Because of all of this, though, I feel like unless her numbers are overtuned, Bel'Veth will not see professional play. I think she's going to be very good at doing lots of damage and being able to clear the jungle very quickly, but her ganks don't look like they're going to be that potent. She has one knock-up and one very telegraphed mobility spell. Like, it feels like as long as you can stay between the arrows, it's going to be hard for Bel'Veth to land her W. So I don't really know. I feel like Bel'Veth is an interesting pick for sure. I don't know how powerful she's going to be. Again, I keep drawing comparisons to Master Yi, but that, I think, is the closest character to Bel'Veth's design, in that she just kind of wants to power farm the jungle to hit 6, do objectives, look for easy to set up ganks or lanes that have an easy way of setting her up, and then just kind of farm from there and get her attack speed, get her items, do objectives. And in team fights, she really needs someone who can set her up with initiation, so she definitely needs a frontline. She is not a frontliner, you guys. She is the second wave in your Malphite or your Ornn start the fight, and Bel'Veth is the first one to dash in and look to get that first kill so she can pop off from there. From kit design, I really feel like Bel'Veth started life as a Voidling spawner champion, and that just has not been how Riot followed the design forward. I don't like that. I don't like the fact that Bel'Veth doesn't exist in her true form most of the time. It really feels like Riot just kind of said, we half-assed a monster champion as opposed to actually making Bel'Veth a monster champion. Yes, I will keep harping on this, guys. That's never going to stop. There are things I like about Bel'Veth, but there are some things that just rub me the wrong way about her. But in general, that is what we're looking at for our newest champion design. You'll have to let me know what you think of her down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts about Bel'Veth. If you like the kit, if you don't like the kit, what kind of synergies you've already seen with her build, or if you've played her on PvE. Let me know all that down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like, and if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all later.